Hi, my name is Olivia. I'm 40 years old and I'm an interior designer. Today, I want to tell you a little about myself, my life, and how I became an interior designer. Let's get started. I spend most of my days at home. Interior design is my passion and my job, but I also really enjoy relaxing at home. Transforming spaces with my style and turning every corner into a comfortable and inspiring environment truly brings me joy. I have a fair complexion, dark brown eyes, and short, wavy brown hair. I'm about 5 feet 7 inches, and I keep in shape because I enjoy exercising. At home, I prefer wearing comfortable and practical clothes. Today, I'm wearing a dark gray crop top and soft fabric shorts. On my feet, I have my favorite flip-flops because comfort is everything when you're at home. I usually leave my hair natural because when I'm home, I enjoy the freedom of not having to style it constantly. I generally spend my time alone at home, but recently, my 40-year-old nephew, Jake, has been visiting often. Jake is a lively and energetic person, but sometimes he can be a bit overwhelming. Although he's my nephew, his behavior can sometimes cross a line. For instance, he often tells me things like, "You look so beautiful today," which isn't always the most comfortable comment for me. As an interior designer, my days are full of creativity and focus. But when I'm at home, I want to unwind. I'm really meticulous about the projects I work on, and I make sure every design reflects a personal touch. At home, I pay special attention to creating harmony in every room because this is where I spend most of my time, and I want it to feel like a peaceful sanctuary. Jake has a habit of making comments or getting a little too close when he visits. While I love that he's enthusiastic, sometimes his behavior makes me uncomfortable. I've had to remind him a few times to respect my space. It's important for me that people understand boundaries, especially family members. When he gets too close or makes overly personal comments, I try to politely distance myself and refocus on my work. Despite his attempts to be overly familiar, I try to maintain a balance. I've explained several times that I value my personal space and prefer that people respect my boundaries. But sometimes, I find myself having to step away and create a little distance. It's not always easy, but it's important to stand firm. Interior design is a demanding career. But when I'm home, I want to relax and enjoy the comfort of my space. It's all about finding that peaceful retreat where I can recharge and focus on my next project. And of course, I always appreciate the times when I can enjoy my home without too many distractions. Jake is a good person at heart, and I know he means no harm. But I think it's important to communicate clearly about the importance of boundaries, even with family. I'm doing my best to maintain that balance. And I hope he understands that personal space and respect are key in any relationship. Despite Jake's occasional inappropriate comments, I try to keep my cool and not let it affect me too much. I've learned that setting boundaries is one of the most important things in maintaining healthy relationships, and I do my best to keep that in mind. It's especially important when it comes to family. I've always been independent, and my career as an interior designer requires me to be strong-willed and assertive. But sometimes, I wonder if I'm being too strict. Maybe Jake just doesn't understand how uncomfortable his comments make me. When I'm not working, so I usually enjoy a quiet evening at home. The layout of my apartment is something I'm incredibly proud of. As an interior designer, I see every room as a blank canvas, and I get to create spaces that reflect both my personality and my sense of style. My living room is cozy yet chic, with a mix of contemporary furniture and warm, earthy tones. There's a large, comfy sofa where I like to curl up with a good book or watch a movie. The walls are adorned with art that I've collected over the years. Each piece has a story behind it. The kitchen is another area where I spend a lot of time. I love cooking, especially when it's a quiet night, and I'm preparing something simple for myself. The kitchen is sleek and modern, with white marble countertops and stainless steel appliances. I've always been a fan of minimalism, so everything has its place. I try to keep the space organized and uncluttered. It helps me relax when I'm in there. Sometimes, when Jake visits, he brings his own energy into the house. He'll walk in, full of life, and start asking about the latest design projects I've been working on. I don't mind talking about my work. It's something I'm passionate about. But it's when he starts lingering around or making unnecessary comments about my appearance that I start to feel uncomfortable. I know he doesn't mean anything by it, but the way he behaves sometimes makes me feel like he's not respecting my space or my boundaries. On those days, I take a moment to step away. I'll retreat to my home office or my bedroom where I can close the door and have some quiet time. I need those moments of solitude to recharge. As much as I care for Jake and love having him around, I also need to protect my peace of mind. Jake is a good guy, and I know his intentions aren't malicious, but there are times when I need to remind him that respect and personal space are essential. I think we're still learning how to navigate the boundaries of family relationships, and that's okay. Communication is key, and I try to express my feelings calmly and openly. As for my work, it's always been my greatest passion. I've been lucky to work on some amazing projects over the years. From designing luxurious penthouses to creating functional, beautiful spaces for families, my job never gets boring. Every project is different, and every client has their own unique vision. It's a challenge I love. I'm constantly pushing myself to learn new trends, materials, and techniques, and I love the feeling of turning an idea into a tangible reality. But when I'm not working, I love just being home and enjoying the simple things. A cup of coffee in the morning while I read the newspaper, a few quiet hours of Netflix in the evening, or taking a walk around the neighborhood to clear my head. Those are the moments that keep me grounded. Jake eventually realized that I wasn't someone who would tolerate disrespect, and he started to be more mindful of my boundaries. We still enjoy spending time together, but I've learned how to assert myself in a way that preserves our relationship while still maintaining my own sense of comfort. It's been a learning process, but I'm glad we've gotten to a place where mutual respect is the foundation of our interactions. My day-to-day life has its rhythm, and I've found a balance between my career and my personal time. I've worked hard to get where I am today, and it hasn't always been easy. Interior design isn't just about creating beautiful spaces. It's about understanding a person's needs, their vision, and translating that into a physical space. I've been in this industry for over 15 years now, and I've learned that no two projects are ever the same. Each client brings a new set of challenges, and that's what keeps the job exciting. Most days, I wake up early. The quiet mornings are my favorite time of day. I love sitting by the window with a hot cup of coffee in hand, watching the sun rise over the skyline. It's one of the few moments in the day when I can truly collect my thoughts before the hustle of work takes over. My apartment is designed to make the most of these moments. The open floor plan lets natural light flood in, and there's always a gentle breeze, especially in the mornings. I've chosen minimalist furniture that's both functional and stylish, with soft textures that make the space feel warm and inviting. After I've had my coffee, I get to work. I have a small studio where I do most of my design planning. I love spending time there, surrounded by fabric swatches, color palettes, and design books. This is where the magic happens. Every project starts with a concept, a vision I create in my mind. I sketch out the layouts, consider the color schemes, and choose the materials. It's an art form, but also a science, ensuring the space is not only aesthetically pleasing, but also practical and comfortable for the people who will live or work in it. However, there are days when I get so wrapped up in my work that time seems to slip away. When I'm immersed in a project, I can lose track of the hours. I've learned that I need to remind myself to take breaks, to step outside, stretch, or even just sit in silence for a few minutes. It's easy to get overwhelmed when you're constantly striving for perfection, but I've learned that balance is key. And while my work is incredibly fulfilling, I've also learned to take time for myself. Jake often interrupts my flow. He doesn't mean to, but his visits always seem to come at the most inconvenient times. He'll knock on my studio door, asking if I want to go for a walk or if I want to grab a coffee. At first, I'd feel guilty about turning him down, but now I've learned that it's okay to prioritize myself. I kindly let him know that I'm busy, and I've set clear boundaries with him. I don't always have to be the one to entertain him, and that's something I've had to accept. At times, Jake can be a bit too persistent, but I try to remain patient. I know he doesn't have bad intentions. He's just a bit more social and spontaneous than I am, and that's something I've learned to navigate. As much as I value our relationship, I also recognize the importance of having personal space and time to recharge. Outside of my work and family, I've also made it a point to nurture my friendships. My best friend Sophie is someone I can always count on. She's the complete opposite of me, outgoing, spontaneous, and always up for an adventure. We met in college, and while our lives have taken different paths, we've stayed close. Sophie and I have a standing dinner date every Thursday evening. It's our time to catch up, talk about life, and enjoy some good food. She's the kind of friend who reminds me to have fun and not to take life too seriously. She helps me unwind when things get too intense, and I'm so grateful for her presence in my life. I think it's easy to get lost in work, especially when you're passionate about what you do, but I've realized that a fulfilling life is about balance. It's about spending time with loved ones, making space for personal growth, and nurturing the relationships that matter most. Jake is still figuring out boundaries, but I'm hopeful that over time, he'll learn to respect my need for space. As for me, I continue to grow as a person and a professional. Every project teaches me something new, and every day brings its own set of challenges. But through it all, I've learned that the key to a happy life is finding peace within yourself and respecting the boundaries of others. It's not always easy, but it's worth the effort. My career continues to evolve, and I'm excited about the future, about the next project, the next challenge, and the next chapter in my life. At the end of the day, when I close my laptop and turn off the lights in my studio, I feel a sense of accomplishment. My home is my sanctuary, a place where I can relax and reflect. And no matter what happens during the day, I know that this space will always be there for me. Quiet, peaceful, and uniquely mine. As time passed, I found myself becoming more confident in setting boundaries. Not just at work, but in my personal life as well. My relationship with Jake had become a learning experience for both of us. While he still visited often, I had made it clear that I needed my space. I think he was beginning to understand, even if it took some time. There were moments when he would still try to push the envelope, but instead of getting frustrated, I tried to be calm and assertive. Jake, I really need to focus on this project, I would say, smiling but firm. We can hang out later, but right now, I need some quiet time. He would often look disappointed, but he'd eventually respect my request. I didn't want to be rude, but I knew I had to prioritize my work and my well-being. Jake was a good guy with a great heart, but like many young people, he was still figuring out how to navigate the complexities of relationships. I found myself in the position of gently teaching him what respect looked like, not just in terms of personal space, but also in how we communicated with each other. On a particularly busy week, when I was deep into a project for a new client who wanted a completely sustainable home, Jake came over unexpectedly. I was reviewing the final designs, making sure everything would work perfectly for the client's needs. The house was supposed to be a blend of modern comfort and eco-friendly materials, my favorite kind of project. I was poring over detailed blueprints when Jake barged in, practically bursting through the door. "Olivia, I need your help with something," he said excitedly, clearly oblivious to the concentration I needed. I took a deep breath. "Jake, I'm in the middle of something right now. Can we talk later? I'm really focused on this project." He hesitated for a moment, his energy still high. I could see the disappointment in his eyes, but I wasn't going to let him derail me. I know, it's just..." He started, but I raised my hand to stop him. "Jake, I know you mean well, but I need you to respect my time. I'm working hard here, and I'm doing this for a reason. I love hanging out with you, but not when I'm on a deadline." He finally gave in, nodding with a sheepish smile. All right, I'll leave you to it, but don't work too hard, okay?" I smiled back, feeling relieved. Setting boundaries wasn't always easy, especially with family, but I had learned that if I wanted to keep my peace of mind, I had to stand my ground. Once Jake left, I returned to my work, feeling a sense of accomplishment. I knew that creating these sustainable spaces wasn't just about design. It was about shaping a future. I was using my skills to make the world a little better, one project at a time. That thought alone kept me motivated as I finalized the designs. The next morning, I took a well-deserved break and met up with Sophie. She had a way of making me forget about work for a while and reminded me that life was more than just deadlines and client requests. Over a delicious lunch at our favorite cafe, we laughed about old times and caught up on the latest news. Sophie had a way of bringing lightness to my otherwise busy world. "You need to take care of yourself, Olivia," she said, with a knowing look. "Work is important, but so are you. You're not just your career. You're allowed to have fun, too." I nodded, feeling grateful for her advice. Sophie had always been a grounding presence in my life, and her support was invaluable. She encouraged me to step outside of my work bubble and experience life in all its facets. Whether it was taking a weekend trip to the countryside or simply spending time with friends, Sophie reminded me that my happiness didn't have to be tied solely to my career. A few days later, after I had wrapped up the sustainable home project, I decided to take Sophie's advice to heart. I went for a long walk in the park, took in the fresh air, and let my mind wander. It was in these moments of peace that I truly felt connected to myself. I realized how important it was to maintain balance, not just between work and personal life, but also within myself. Jake still stopped by now and then, but the dynamic had shifted. He had started to respect my time more, and I had learned to communicate my needs more clearly. The relationship was growing stronger, built on mutual respect. I could tell that he was beginning to understand what it meant to be considerate of others' boundaries. As for me, I had learned a lot about myself over the past few months. I had always been someone who threw myself into my work. But now I realized the importance of taking a step back, reflecting, and allowing myself to enjoy the simple pleasures of life. My career as an interior designer was incredibly fulfilling, but I was learning that life outside of work was just as important. As the weeks went by, I started to feel a sense of equilibrium in my life. The hustle of interior design, while still demanding, no longer felt overwhelming. I had learned to set clear boundaries at work, and with Jake, I had found a way to balance our relationship without feeling like my personal space was being invaded. There were still moments when Jake would stop by, but now his visits felt more like those of a respectful family member. He would knock on my door, wait for me to answer, and then, instead of barging in, he'd ask if it was a good time to talk. That small shift meant a lot to me. It showed that he was listening and learning. One evening, after a particularly successful project completion, I sat on my balcony, looking out at the city skyline. The cool breeze felt refreshing against my skin as I sipped a glass of wine. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace with my life. The past few years had been full of growth, both professionally and personally, and I was proud of where I had gotten. Interior design wasn't just a job for me. It was a way of expressing who I was. Each space I created was an extension of myself, my tastes, my values, and my vision. And every time a client walked into a space I designed and smiled, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment. It was moments like that that reminded me why I had chosen this career in the first place. As I sat there, lost in thought, my phone buzzed with a text message from Sophie. She was asking if I wanted to meet up for a coffee the next day. I smiled, knowing that our coffee dates had become a source of comfort for me. Sophie had been the steady force in my life when everything else felt chaotic. Her friendship had taught me how to embrace balance, to not let work consume me, and to find joy in the simple moments. The next morning, I met Sophie at our usual spot. As I walked into the cafe, I could already see her sitting at the table, her bright smile lighting up the room. We exchanged hugs and immediately started talking about the latest happenings in our lives. "Olivia, you look so relaxed lately. I'm glad to see you finding time for yourself," Sophie said, her voice full of warmth. "I can tell that things with Jake have improved, too." I nodded, taking a sip of my coffee. "Yeah, it's been a work in progress, but we've gotten to a good place. I think he's starting to understand the importance of personal space, and I've learned to stand my ground when I need to. It's a two-way street." Sophie smiled knowingly. "It sounds like you've really grown, Olivia. You're not just a successful designer, you're a woman who knows what she wants and how to maintain boundaries." Her words filled me with pride. No, it was true. I had grown. I wasn't just the person who worked hard to create beautiful spaces. I was learning to create a balanced life for myself as well. It wasn't easy, but I was figuring it out, one step at a time. As the conversation turned to other topics, I realized that life was about more than just work. It was about connections, both with others and with yourself. I had learned to nurture both, and in doing so, I had discovered a deeper sense of happiness and fulfillment. Later that evening, I sat in my living room, reflecting on the day. The space around me felt warm and inviting, a testament to the work I had put into making it my own. I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I had the strength to face them. I had a career I was passionate about, a family that loved me, and friends who supported me. And as I sat there, feeling the quiet hum of contentment wash over me, I realized that I was exactly where I was meant to be.